Hello, it's Randi Rhodes. Here's a clip from our show, and go to randyrhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy us a podcast.
Mary had a little man. The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon.
I have a dream today.
Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
On this vote, the yeas are 227 and the nays are 203. The conference report is adopted without objection. The motion to reconsider is laid upon the table.
And there goes your economy, everybody. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Hey, Brett, put this in the prediction folder and earmark it for, let's say 5 years from now. Yeah, just put it in the prediction folder. Thank you. Thank you very much. So that was it. The House just voted to pass these ridiculous tax cuts, which, it's the biggest heist in the history of the United States of America since the last biggest heist in the history of the United States of America, which was the Bush tax cuts, right? That crashed our economy. So 2003, Bush tax cuts. 2008, 5 years later, economy crashed. Why? Combination of deregulation, lowering tax cuts in a time of war, and bam, there you go. Bye-bye house. Bye-bye 401k. Bye-bye everything. So I'm predicting 5 years. It may be less than 5 years. Here's what's going to happen, okay? First of all, before we tell you what's going to happen, let's just listen to the denials from the Trump that he will not make a single dime. This is bad for Donald Trump. This is not good for him. This is bad, bad, bad for him.
The rich will not be gaining at all with this plan. We're looking for the middle class, and we're looking for jobs. Jobs meaning companies. So we're looking for the middle class, and we're looking at jobs.
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't benefit. In fact, very, very strongly, as you see, I think there's very little benefit for people of wealth.
I think the wealthy will be pretty much where they are. Pretty much where they are. If we can do that, we'd like it. If they have to go higher, they'll go higher, frankly.
And it's not good for me, believe me.
It's a middle-class bill. That's what we're thinking of. That's what I want. I've had rich friends of mine come up to me and say, Donald, you're doing this tax plan. We don't want anything.
I keep hearing Schumer, this is for the wealthy. Well, if it is, my friends don't know about it.
Oh, my God. Okay. So the American public is not stupid. Most people despise this bill. It has a 23 to 29% approval rating, depending on who's doing the polling, Pew, Quinnipiac, CNN. The president has an approval rating, depending on who's doing the polling. CNN's poll came out in better for Donald Trump than Quinnipiac and Pew. Quinnipiac and Pew have him around 32%. CNN's got him at 35% approval rating. Most Americans are hip to what's going on here. And what's going on here is that this terrible heist that just happened in broad daylight. I mean, you were watching a theft is what you were watching. You're watching grand theft larceny. 83% of the tax cuts go to the top 1%. 83% go to the top 1%. The richest 1% get 1/5 of the tax cuts next year alone. That grows to 83% by 2027. I mean, this is just, and he has the nerve to sit there and say it won't benefit him. Well, of course, this pass-through thing benefits him, and I won't vote for anything that adds to the deficit, not one penny. Bob Corker apparently found out that, he's in the real estate business, and this will benefit him with the pass-through stuff. And so he's a yes. Now, the Senate will vote probably later this afternoon or tonight. House has already voted. 12 Republicans voted no. Just so you know. And what's interesting is when you look at the 12, they're all from high tax states. They're all from states that benefited from the salt tax deduction, that benefited from high value properties, because, if you live in New York, you can't even live there unless your apartment, your 1,000 square foot apartment is, probably going to cost you about $2 million. So when you look at the no votes, they all came from New York, New Jersey, California, New York, New Jersey, California, New Jersey, New York, New York. And Walter Smith from North Carolina, who, really did vote on principle because he is adverse to adding $1.46 trillion to the deficit. But it was Dan Donovan from New York, no. John Faso, New York, no. Rodney Fringlinghausen from New Jersey. Darrell Issa was a no. Walter Jones was a no from North Carolina. Peter King from New York was a no. Leonard Lance from New Jersey. Frank Lobiondo from New Jersey, no. Dana Rohrabacher from California was a no. Chris Smith from New Jersey. Elise Stefanik from New York. And Lee Zeldin from New York all voted no. No Democrats voted yes. 2 Democrats did not vote. So the tally was 227 to 203, and it passed the House. And this is the conference bill. Okay, this is the conference committee was visited by 5,000 to 6,000 lobbyists, and every day more gifts would go out the window, would go out the door, would go, through the plumbing into the pockets of the very wealthy. What this does is, first of all, this is the most important thing. You know how the president says it's going to create jobs here at home? And people are going to, like all this money, the $2.3 trillion worth of profits that our corporations are already sitting on, that somehow they will stop sitting on it and not use this money to cushion their asses. Okay, that's ridiculous because CPAs, accountants, the Center for Tax Policy, the Center for not the Center, the CBO. Okay, all these groups have looked at what this bill means for ordinary people, and they have deduced that ordinary households will make about $1 a day. $1 a day. Thank you, Donald. Thank you for your thank you for caring about. What are you going to do with $1 a day? And then, of course, 92 million middle-class families will see their taxes increase once this temporary tax cut, which was supposed to last for 10 years, they shortened it to only 8 years. Why? Because there were a couple of things that they were looking at doing, and 2 things cost the same thing. Lowering the top individual tax rate for the wealthiest Americans from 39.6% down to 37%, a 2% decrease for people making, $500,000-$600,000 a year. That cost $80 billion over 10 years. Or they could have helped 24 million working families. And that would have cost $80 billion. Well, they both cost the same thing, and they decided that they would go with lowering the top tax rate. I'm not kidding. That they would lower the top tax rate. And so that cost would have been, you could have made the tax cuts last 10 years. But they decided to make the tax cuts expire for non-rich people, for ordinary families, after 8 years so that they could pass it through reconciliation, so that they could use this irregular order in the Senate, okay, to only need 50 votes. That's what they chose. So this thing expires for individuals in 8 years instead of 10. And they chose. They had to choose between lowering the top tax rate or making these things, extend for 10 years. And they chose not to let it go for 10. It's just unbelievable, the choices they made. There will be now automatic cuts to Medicare next year alone. $25 billion will be cut from Medicare in 2018. The total cost over the 10 years is $400 billion out of Medicare. So the seniors are going to pay for the tax breaks for the corporations and the wealthy. The automatic spending cuts are triggered because of the pay-go rules that were passed in 2010. And of course, this adds $1.46 trillion. So pay-go kicks in, and it looks like $25 billion will be cut from Medicare. Also, $136 billion will be cut from agriculture subsidies, military retirement, pension funds, and government pension funds, and more. 13 million families will, see their health care coverage. The cost of their premiums go up 10% next year, as the individual mandate will be phased out And so people don't have to buy health insurance anymore. And, it will take the healthy people and the younger people out of the equation. And so the people who need the health care the most will be left in the pool, which we all know has a negative effect on how much the health care will cost. And so our premiums will go up by 10%, and that is $130 a month for me. So if I'm saving $1 a day, that's $30 a month. But my health care goes up $130. I'm in the hole for $100. See what I mean? Okay. So $314 billion by cutting the individual mandate. $314 billion is going to be removed, and 13 million people will be uninsured, and that causes a 10% increase in premiums. Okay, there's a corporate tax rate cut of $1.4 trillion, and those cuts are permanent. Because the corporate tax rate is slashed from 35 to 21%, and the alternative minimum tax, which corporations, would have to, they would come up against that, meaning they would have to pay something. That's abolished. That's gone. So, and there's new accounting rules too. But listen, I just want to tell you one thing. This is the most amazing thing in the world. Here's why business is going to fly out of the United States. There is something that very few people have talked about, but it is astonishing when you read what the CPAs of America are actually writing now. There is a group, Ann Zimmerman is the co-chair of the Business for Responsible Tax Reform. It's a coalition of small businesses and organizations. And she's the founder of a giant CPA company called Zimmerman and Company. Okay. And they do their accounting. They're a public accounting firm with offices in Cincinnati and Cleveland. Okay. This is, the Rust Belt. Okay. She says, as a CPA, I could be celebrating the loopholes because they thickened the tax code. Okay. They added all these crazy loopholes. They didn't simplify the tax code. That's a lie too. There were seven brackets. Guess what? There's 7 brackets. And they added all these loopholes. Carried interest is still in there. There's a whole bunch of, lovely gifts for corporations. But she says as a CPA, she should be celebrating these, the adding of all these loopholes that, form the 500 pages of this bill. So she writes, as a CPA, I should be celebrating these loopholes. After all, I would be able to save my clients a lot on taxes and could be invited to fly along to, say, the Cayman Islands to set up an offshore account under the new regulations, 4 days at the beach with a fully stocked hotel, mini bar, and all the HBO and Showtime that I could watch, all fully deductible from me and my clients. Sounds nice, right? She says, wrong. As someone who serves small businesses and has for more than 30 years, and the co-chair of an organization called Businesses for Responsible Tax Reform, I am not cheering. Small business owners are not cheering for the bill either. And here's why it's exactly the opposite. She says, the bill, despite the glossy, small business friendly language being used to sell it, actually does more to widen the tax advantage gap between large and small businesses than the present tax code does, which is already tilted towards big business. She said this bill tilts it even more thanks to the change, and this is so important, from a worldwide tax system, which requires that United States companies pay Uncle Sam taxes on all their profits regardless of where they earn their income, to something called a territorial system. This means companies don't owe taxes to their own governments on income they make offshore. Guess what that means? Well, if you're a big business and you're looking to shield your profits that you make overseas, you're going to move the whole damn company overseas. You're going to offshore much more to gain more favorable tax treatment than is available within the United States of America. This gives significant financial and competitive advantage to big business over neighborhood mom and pops. Like, we're talking like the dry cleaner, we're talking about your bars, you're talking about your restaurants that aren't chains. You know, I mean, you're talking about neighborhood daycare providers. This is unbelievable. All you have to do now is move offshore as a big business, and you don't have to pay taxes in the United States. Where's the incentive to do business here? Go to RandiRhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.